Hello, everyone, and welcome to our January research webinar put on by the Canadian Coalition for Homeopathy. We're very happy to have you all here. If you'd like to put in the chat where you're coming from, we'd love to know. Curious about where you're tuning in from this morning or this afternoon or this evening, depending on where in the world you are. And we just want to begin with a few words about the Canadian Coalition for Homeopathy for those of you who perhaps are joining us for the first time. And this is our wonderful presentation that you've joined us for today. We will hear from Dr. Faedo in just a few minutes. The Canadian Coalition for Homeopathy was launched in April of 2022. And the mission of the coalition is to bring together patient associations, homeopathic practitioners, researchers, and industry stakeholders who wish to promote homeopathy in Canada and preserve the freedom of choice in medicine. And to find out more about the coalition, you can go to our website at homeopathycoalition.ca, where you will find a growing number of articles and information about upcoming webinars. As well, you can join our mailing list to stay up to date with our future offerings. Some of the objectives of the coalition: to educate the public on the many benefits of homeopathy, and this is part of the initiative behind the research webinar series. These webinars are not just intended for professional homeopaths, but in fact for the general public as well as the broader scientific community, to spread the news of homeopathy and its various uses, not only in treating humans, but as we'll see today, also for ecological purposes. And homeopathy is very multifaceted. So we want to promote homeopathy in as many ways as we possibly can. And part of our agenda is also to debunk false information about homeopathy and to provide reliable, up-to-date research about the science of homeopathic medicine. We dive into the research supporting the efficacy of homeopathy and defend and promote the access to homeopathic medicine in Canada. And we have a very exciting lineup of presentations for you this year. All of them are free. So please do sign up. Please keep up to date. On February 9th, we have Dr. Tournier from the Homeopathic Research Institute, who will be talking about homeopathy between matter and light. How does homeopathy work? In March, we have Dr. Ronald Whitmont talking about homeopathy and its use in pain. On April 16th, we have a recorded presentation from Rachel Roberts, also from the Homeopathy Research Institute. A very wonderful presentation, and we will have a lively panel discussion to follow. In May, we have Anand Damour, director of the film Magic Pills, who some of you will undoubtedly know, speaking on homeopathy and infectious diseases. In June, we have Richard Grossinger, anthropologist and publisher who has dedicated a lot of time writing about homeopathy and other branches of holistic medicine, speaking about the basis of homeopathic microdoses. And in September, we have Esther van der Werf speaking about the role of homeopathy in antimicrobial resistance. And then finally, in October, we have Christophe Merville talking about the French observational study and about the opportunities of homeopathy in healthcare. And there will be likely a few more webinars announced for this year, but as you can see, we already have a very exciting schedule. So we very much hope that you can join us. And now I will hand it over to Dr. Shram to introduce today's webinar and our speaker. Shram, you're muted.
Thank you, Victor, and hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. It is my pleasure to be here and introduce you today's topic and Dr. Faedo. As you heard, today's topic is agroecology and the use of homeopathy and dynamized high dilutions in agriculture, pathways to sustainable food production. So we all know that over the last few decades, the theoretical and methodological framework for homeopathy has expanded from the treatment of humans to that of animals, crops, and agroecosystem. I think the biggest challenge we have is working in agriculture to identify the remedies that restore the dynamic equilibrium in such agroecosystems. Dr. Faedo is a Brazilian agronomist and researcher at Coventry University. And he will highlight today for us the potential of homeopathy in agriculture, a groundbreaking approach that uses homeopathic remedies to enhance crop resilience, improve soil health, and reduce reliance on harmful chemicals. Unlike industrial farming, which depletes soil and pollutes ecosystems, homeopathy promotes the interconnected health of plants, soil, and the environment. Studies from countries like Brazil, Germany, and India have shown promising results with crops such as tomatoes, wheat, beans, and demonstrating increased yields, toxin-free pest control, and improved root growth and photosynthesis. Dr. Faedo places homeopathy within the broader framework of agroecology, which challenges industrial farming practices that degrade soil and burden farmers financially. While adoptions in North America is limited due to the influence of agribusiness and lack of awareness, countries like Brazil and India have been more receptive to alternative methods. Dr. Faedo emphasizes that this shift is not just about improving agriculture, it's about fostering global awareness of the deep connection between soil, food, and human health. By embracing sustainable solutions, we can create a healthier, more resilient, and collaborative agricultural future. We'd love to invite Dr. Faedo to tell us a bit about yourself, your background, your experiences, and then just share with us your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Dr. Sharan, for the lovely introduction. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Leonardo Faedo. As Dr. Sharan introduced, I'm from Brazil. Originally, I currently work and live in England, working for Coventry University, working in the Center of Agroecology, Water and Resilience. And at the moment, I'm talking with you from southern Italy, where I'm working in this month of January. And I am an agronomist by background, and I have been working with sustainable farming since 2012 in South America and Europe. And today I'm going to present a little bit of our work with the topic. Homeopathy and its use in agriculture is just one of the topics that I'm interested in. My key core and interest as a researcher, as an agronomist, is looking into health strategies to promote health strategies inside of food production. And that's how I came across homeopathy. So without any further ado, I will start sharing my screen here. Just takes a few seconds. I'll make it full mode presentation. Okay, I think you should be able to see it full mode presentation now. The title of let me just try to move this. There you go. So the title of this contribution today of the lecture. Thanks once again for the Canadian Coalition for Homeopathy for inviting me. It's a very important work that you're doing, as you just explained before, to really explain what homeopathy is and like what are the real potential that this methodology have. The title of my contribution today is Agroecology and the Use of Homeopathy in Agriculture, Pathways for Sustainable Food Production. Just a summary of what we're going to be covering here. We're going to be looking at ecology and systems theory applied to homeopathy. These are key features for us to understand how we can actually start using homeopathy in agriculture and environment. This background is fundamental to understand that. Then we are going to be looking into homeopathy, dynamized high dilutions, and its use in agriculture and environment, where I'll be sharing some literature for you in the chat afterwards. So no worries about any reference that I'll be sending. I'll make this available for everybody. And then we're going to be looking into the research on agroecology and the connections with dynamized high dilution, particularly looking into some research publications that me and my team have been doing in this last 15 years. The starting point here for our conversation really is this concern that I have, in which I'm really, it's how we look at farming systems. What is the approach that we look to farming systems? In the one hand, we have a salutogenic approach. And the salutogenic approach, it's concerned what causes health. It's about reaching potential. It's about being proactive for gain and growth and to discover how to live well. On the other hand, the pathogenic approach, it's concerned on what causes disease. It's about avoiding problems, treating illness and disease. It's about risk avoidance, and it's about being reactive. So a salutogenic approach is concerned about what causes health, and a pathogenic approach is what causes disease. I'm not placing here what's better than the other. I'm just illustrating what the differences are, and my main interest is about health approach in agriculture. I'm interested to look into salutogenic approach in agriculture, and that's how homeopathy came to play in my research background. Obviously, homeopathy is philosophy, science, and art of healing. And from the organome, we take from the paragraphs 2 and 9 these keywords that for me are relevant. It's a fast, smooth, and long-lasting therapy, and it's approachable to all living beings. I ask you to remind that the word therapy comes from the Greek therapeia, which means to run cold, to serve, to treat, to heal, to care. How do we do that to the agroecosystem? Well, we have to integrate forms of knowledge. We have to use systemic thinking and ecological approach, because as you are well aware of, homeopathy was first designed and developed 200 years ago as a human therapy. But now, with the development of the ecological thinking and systemic thinking, it is possible to apply this therapeutic system to the whole agroecosystem. And that's possible due to the unique key feature of the integrative homeopathy conceptual framework that is derived from the Hippocratic Hahnemannian system. I wanted to invite you now to make this exercise. Imagine when you open like an electronic device and you crack it open and you look inside. And at first you see all these different components with these different forms and shapes. And we see that different forms and shapes are connected to these different pathways, these electronic pathways that send messages in electronic and messages that ultimately puts that device to operate. So is the Hippocratic Hahnemannian system. This system is based on its key core aspects, which are based in scientific experiments and trials, key philosophical reflections, the therapeutic practices. And these lays the foundations for a framework where homeopathy can be applied and used by researchers like myself, farmers, advisors, and therapeutic, with the key aim of achieving the vitality of the ecosystem. Now, if this is all true, if this is really applied, it is possible to use homeopathy to treat humans, animals, plants, and therefore the agroecosystem, the environment. It's important to know that the application of the homeopathy in agroecosystems follow the logic of the application of the ecological thought. Ecology as a scientific discipline starts in the 50s with the advent of the brothers Odum. The word ecology comes from the Greek oikos, which means the household, and it studies the dynamic and the relationship of the members of this household. The first coinage of the term, though, comes from early as 1866, Ecology by the German zoologist. And today, ecology studies the full scale of life, from bacteria to the entire planet. As the knowledge about ecology starts to expand, we started to get to know the notions about ecological systems. And the ecological system is that understanding that we have now, that the environment and the organisms that live in it interact with the biotic and the abiotic components. And it's a dynamic process. It's not a closed systems. At the end of this application of this thought, we have agroecological systems, which in a very nutshell, it's the application of the ecological thought to farming. So agroecology means farming in harmony with the ecological principles. This is just like an introduction to the topic. This is a very broad but a very important topic for including homeopaths and everyone that is interested in the topic, because the anthropogenic view has placed us in the last decades as humans being outside of the ecological system, as being kind of the masters of the ecosystem and having the final word and controlling that. But in reality, we know now that we are actually part of this great network. And I here offer a few introduction into the topic. Some of these texts are in Spanish and Portuguese, but there is a good number of those also available in English. And from this body of knowledge, from this body of knowledge of ecology, there are some certain things that we can classify as what are characteristics of the living beings. For instance, life organizes itself in networks. It's inherent, regenerative. It is creative. All living systems are non-linear. This has a very important application because since the advancements in physics, we tend to look at life from a Cartesianistic perspective and looking at life phenomena in closed systems, like being constrained. And that is no longer true. Although it has a usefulness for us to understand the phenomena, it can't be more far from the reality. All living systems are non-linear, they are open. We also know now that life cannot be associated with the DNA, because when something dies, the DNA is still there, but the life is not there. Life is associated with water, at least in the planet Earth, and there are a few key features that are related to living organisms. There is the synthesis and the necessity of having proteins circulating, the role of membranes and filtering and play active regulation of these organisms. There is the vital role of water for all these different sorts of morphophysiological functions. And there is the key feature of metabolism, and there is the key role of information patterns that we're going to be looking at. In the very words of Lee Margulis, is if metabolized, it is alive. And then if we extrapolate that understanding, that pure like biological view of life, and we look at farming systems and how farming systems understand this manifestation of life, there are some really key contributions, particularly from the biodynamic movement, where the vitality principle that you might all be aware of, that is very important for homeopathy, perhaps the only therapeutic system in the West that acknowledges the principle of vital force. And in agriculture, that vital principle is present inside of the biodynamic movement. Because inside of the biodynamic movement, not only all these characteristics that I just listed here in the green board, are present, but biodynamic movement is about eating more with intuition. It's about love. It's about strength. It's about dignity. It's about humanity. It's about sensitivity. These are all features of a multifaceted phenomena that is the vitality principle. And in agriculture, it's clear that the vitality starts from the soil and reaches the stomach. Now then, it is possible also to reinterpret and to look into the ecological approach and homeopathy in terms of levels of coherence. For example, we can clearly establish the levels of coherence, for example, as a whole organism, as in the case of the human being. But also today we know that a NOR chart it's also possible to be considered as a whole organism with all the trees inside. The plot with the connection of the microbiome and the fungi and the interaction with the species in the aerial part, these all create a single unity, a single organisms. The same is true for herds of animals. If anybody has have the chance to work or to be familiar or to be raised in a more rural environment, you know that herds of animals start to behave as a single unity. That's also present not just in domestic animals, but in nature as well. These ecological level of coherence also presents itself in the level of an organization of a system of organs. The same thing here for an apple tree, where the branches, the trees, the root systems are possible to be interpreted as systems of organs. So same true for the individual animal. And this coherence is also then finally applied to the level of an organ. We can look then to specifically to a heart, or in this case, from the orchard, specifically the health of the fruits, and in the case of the animal, for instance, the health of the uber. So that is clear that this is an ecological approach between homeopathy and ecological thought through levels of coherence. Recently, we have also discovered that, particularly concerning with plants, there are a functional ecological similarity between human and the plant microbiome. For instance, the reproductive organs in humans are responsible for the sexual health and the reproductive success. So it's the same thing for the plants. The equivalent in the plant is the flower. The flowering structure is the functional similarity. When we look to the gut, it's responsible for the nutrient uptake, for the resistance to pathogen establishment. It's the same true for plants. The root system is responsible for assimilating nutrients to make the establishment of symbiotic relationships with all sorts of organisms. And we know today that it's one of the responsible triggers for the self-immune system of the plants in the production of secondary metabolites. And the same thing for the aerial part of the human being and the aerial part of the plants. So it's possible to make these correlations. And perhaps the most relevant today is the example that I just gave between the correlations between the role of the root system and the human digestive system and its role in building the immunity and the resistance to abiotic stressors and biotic stressors. So overall, we see that for any of the systems that I have presented here, humans, plants, and animals, the key factor that we want to achieve is the modern concept of homeostasis, which is the result of an organism's work towards keeping its internal environment in balance. It's a dynamic condition that keeps changing and is susceptible to its environment. And when we try to interact there, we want to gain back this dynamic. Now, this raises some key reflections. When we want to apply homeopathy to the agroecosystems, what should I consider? Am I looking to the individual? Am I looking to the animals? And am I looking to the system? Is it about the whole plot, or is it about the individual plant? Are the systems open or closed? Are they dynamic or statics? These key reflections are important to know which is the organism or the system worth to be healed. So in the agro ecosystem, it is possible for us throughout the individualization of the case to understand what is worth and needs to be seeking to be healed. But well, in order for that to be achieved with success, whenever we're trying to set up a research or to understand better the phenomena, this is only possible when we start to apply the general systems of theory as proposed by Louis von Montalembert. And the general systems theory started from the Aristotelian statement that the whole is greater than the parts. And from this powerful understanding, Bertalanffy was based to establish a theory that today has the most applications to all the disciplines inside of the academic world. Now, systemic theory is applied to sociology, to medicine, to physics, to biology, and physiotherapy, and to communication, and so on and so forth. And the understanding of systems theory, it's very complex, but here I share some of the very common some examples that systems theory helps us to understand. And basically, systems theory is the study of complex systems with many interrelated and interdependent parts. This is very important. Interrelated and in interdependent parts. And that's exactly what an agroecosystem is. It is from systems theory that words, as I just mentioned, homeostasis came from, resilience, new complexity, cybernetics, singularity, equilibrium. These are all terms that emerge from systems theory. Here I give just some key concepts for us to have in our back of our mind. For example, a system is an entity made up of interrelated and interdependent parts, boundaries, homeostasis. What does it mean? Feedback loop. Loop is the process by which systems self-correct based on reactions from other systems in the environment. Lots of these terms that now emerge from system thinking, we can really correlate towards, for example, what we read in the organon. It's an expanded and more modern way in the vocabulary, but we see the applications and the similarities with the words and the teachings present in the organon. So this will be made available for you later. Don't worry about that. So we see that there is the necessity of understanding the relationships between the bits with the whole, and that's key feature for homeopathy as well, and so it is for farming systems. Now, ecology and systemic thinking come together in a key feature, which is the information pattern. The dynamized high dilutions correlate and have its action, at least from the perspective from the research, from our research, into information patterns. There's a very exciting field of research developing, stemming from systems theory, resonance theory, information theory, and the notion of subtle energy effects in biological systems, which have risen to this new exciting topic called quantum biology. You should have a look, particularly in the work from McFadden and Al-Khalil, which explain and demonstrate that like some very key features of nature, for example, photosynthesis happens into quantum dynamic, and these very complex systems are basic information patterns that stimulate each other, and there is an exchange of information, energy, and matter in the different forms and levels. So when we apply the ecological thought and understanding to the systemic thinking, these two things come together. Well, if we keep expanding, human beings are complex. We have a whole social dynamics that makes us who we are. And we see, for example, that the biological connections are much broader than just the one of like exchanging energy and matter. In the biological networks, they operate in the realm of matter. It's about producing material structure, exchanging modules of biochemical reactions, information networks, and communications to produce and sustain natural boundaries. In the social networks, it operates in the realm of meaning. It produces also structures and characteristics of a given culture. It's exchange information and ideas. It produces and sustains material and cultural that constrain the behavior or expand the behavior of its members. So it's clearly the correlation between them and how necessary it is to consider all of these when applying a therapeutic system. So homeopathy differs from all the other therapeutic systems when its approach is extended to agriculture. No other system in the Western culture does that. Homeopathic therapy, it's possible to be applied in the agricultural system and environment. And my understanding on that is that the therapeutic homeopathic therapeutic system, it's a therapeutic process. It's a reference via an information systems that seek to revitalize the dynamic in the interaction of the systems. So it is possible to apply the understanding of system thinking to homeopathy, understanding the input that in this case is the homeopathic preparation, the process, which is the healing, the healing process, and the output, which is the permanent healing of any given organism. And then if the treatment has been, the remedy has been chosen properly, or if there is any difficulties to the process of healing, there's the feedback, and then it's an ongoing process. And that's only a characteristic that only homeopathy has, and that's the unique contribution and what makes homeopathy so important and so relevant. And this also helps us to understand that actually an organism, it's much more complex than its like biological features. So, for example, we know that now a given organism has a structure feature, it has a functional feature, and it also have a conjunctural feature. All these three aspects are considered what we now understand in the agroecological theory as the farming organism. It's in most of the case studies where we do anthropological studies or grounded theory studies to see that pretty much biggest of the cases, the health of the ecosystem is directly correlated to the health of the owner of the land and how the owner of the land treats and deal with the land. It's an interesting and direct correlation is pretty much evident. So what I'm saying here is it's that we have to re-signify, at least to apply that to agriculture and environment, we have to re-signify the theoretical base of homeopathy and some of its key features, like, for example, the miasmatic theory, the similarity levels, the total symptoms, the limits to cure, and apply these into these new notions of ecological systems. And when reflecting and thinking about these concepts inside of the ecological thinking, understanding the systemic response that this remedy and the application of a treatment will have, this inevitably gives reason to a systemic view of health and the creation of wisdom talks throughout the process of the anamnesis and understanding what needs to be treated in that property. It's clear to understand that disease or ill experiences are the result from patterns of disorders. This is very important. and that the healing process, it's a natural process present in nature. We know that a lot from homeopathic theory, but also from biology. There is this tendency for self-healing of an organism that is based on the process of organization, and it's guided by the process of feedback loops. Hence, a healthy soil means healthy food and healthy people. On top of that, we have that the mind and the consciousness are part and process of nature. The cognition process, as proposed by Humberto Maturana and Francisco Varela, the process of knowing, is the process of life itself. So whenever we start to talk to a farmer, whenever we start to analyze an ecosystems, and we start to try to decide what kind of an intervention, if at all, we have to have, these wisdom talks, all right? And I here recommend the work on the homeopathic culture from Leonardo and Benoit Moore, that these concepts about the process of knowing and trying to understand the biological system comes very clear. And also, this brings us to a very important reflection in one of the key terms that we find across the organon and some of the more classical literature in homeopathy, which is this concept of a non-material force. For a long time, this was understood as some kind of spiritual force or a different interpretations. But what I'm proposing here is looking at it through the lens of information theory and ecological theory, that a homeopathic remedy can now be interpreted as an information pattern. This language is interpreted in the light of subtle dynamics and communication in nature and the organization of information patterns in nature and the organisms. Now, this is made evident through biostimulation effects in nature. And we can assure, without being worried of using this term, this is a scientific term well known across disciplines, that the dynamized high dilutions are a vehicle or information carrier. It's important to highlight here the importance of the DHD, because you see, it's not about the dilution only, it's about the dynamization process, the physical property that allows the homeopathic preparation to imprint this information into the molecule, is the dynamization process that causes cavitation and the process of epistaxy. These has led the water to create a certain kind of structure. We know from a few previous year time, there was a lot of use of the word water memory that has a lot of good uses. It was misused though for a certain extent, but the key core thing about the water having some kind of memory, it is true, but that is not the memory as we understand, but more like an electromagnetic structure that makes bonds and connections and creates an electromagnetic structure. Water is one of the most important things that we have, that is vital for life, but also looking from a scientific perspective, it's one of the things that have the most number of what we call physical chemical anomalies. Water has impressive 62 physical chemical anomalies, going from the basic ones that is to be liquid in nature temperature, but also having the presence of coherent domains in water. And what does this means? It means that water is not just a passive matter. It is an active process capable of self-organization. Present all the studies that look into water structure, for example, in the formation of easy water, where the molecules of water organize themselves, being different from bulk water. And this is then translated into the information pattern that we were discussing. If you apply methodologies, for example, as crystallography, it reviews a fundamental understanding. Crystal structure reveals itself in the vibration of the molecules. So crystallization studies show that the different molecules present in a sample of water, or in this case, the dynamized high dilutions, form different patterns. What does it mean? They have different information patterns, even in higher potencies, 1200 CH and so on and forward. So it is clear and it is possible to understand that dynamized high dilutions are a vehicle. They are information carriers. And this kind of concludes our introduction to the topic of systemic thinking and ecological thinking applied to homeopathy. These could be, we could be talking here for hours and hours, but unfortunately we are short on time. So we dive now into the research on homeopathy and dynamized high dilutions in agriculture and environment. As I was explaining in the beginning of the lecture, I am no homeopath myself. I have trained in homeopathy because in Brazil, due to the organic legislation that we have in the country, homeopathy is both included in the health public service system, but also in the official regulation for organic farming, due to its low residual impact and many other characteristics. So for agronomists like myself, we undertake courses of like 600 hours, not to treat the people, but to treat the environment, the agroecological environment. And that's how I got my training back there in 2016, while working in the Laboratory of Plant Health and Homeopathy from EPAGRE, the institution here, which is the research agency from the state of Santa Catarina, southern Brazil. And at the moment, I represent a connection between academic and NGO organizations. For example, developing research with University of Santa Catarina, Coventry University in UK, University of Bologna, Italy, Federal University from Santa Catarina, Bern University from Switzerland, and a series of organizations like the Whole Health Agriculture, which is an organization that supports farmers in UK to use homeopathy in the management of their land and husbandry, but also the Homeopathy Research Institute, the GED group, the European Commission for Homeopathy, and so on and so forth. So you can see that it's a broad and thriving network that keeps working and producing really interesting results that helps us to inspire each other and help us to put evidence to those that kind of come around to discreditate the method, most of the time coming from ignorance. And remember, the meaning of the word ignorance is not knowing, because they don't know, and especially in this time of like fast social media information, the misinformation, it's even stronger. So the work of these networks, and for example now the Canadian coalition, it's fundamental to build the reliable and the trustful evidence on the topic. I would like to recommend as a starting pack and more light reading these two books. And I want to highlight that homeopathy itself won't fix the problems of your crop or your farm if you just apply just itself, like it is for human therapy. Homeopathy must be included alongside of the agroecological practices for the management of the ecosystem. It has to be used alongside with other tools, and then its effects are even more maximized. I will be putting this chapter here that we published in this book from Dr. Julia Wright, Sutter agroecologist, Farming with the Hidden Half of Nature. I'll be putting this in the chat for open access, so you can have a read on this afterwards. It's really interesting. And the book from Kaviraj, it's a classic one that makes some suggestions, general suggestions for remedy. In research, we tend to use the individualization of the remedies, following kind of the methodology from homeopathy. But in this book here from Kaviraj, there are some more general recommendations which can be very helpful for daily use. So in terms of the research specifically of agroecology and the research on dynamized high dilutions, the key features are the biostimulation effect, so the natural response of an organism towards the remedy. It has a key feature that it has a low residual impact. And of course, it is an application of the ecological and systemic thinking that we just covered in the first part of our seminar. And since 2020, we have been publishing, and I'm just sharing some of my publications. There are many more publications on the topic. We are actually working now in a systematic review that's going to be published next year with our team from Switzerland, reviewing all the research into the topic. So this will be made available next year. But I just want to share here some of my personal publications because I can talk better about them. So we started in 2020 with some publications where we combined biological agents and in combination with homeopathic preparations to treat strawberry crop. We got some excellent results with irrigated rice crops. We expanded the studies combining biological control using Trichoderma harzianum and Dynamized High Dilutions for strawberry, yielding positive results. I just mentioned the book chapter that I'm going to be sharing with you. It's a very interesting reading with examples from Brazil. And these two recent publications from last year that were published in this high impact journal in the agriculture. These are top tier journals in agriculture, which made us very happy because having this space in these high impact journals, it's really meaningful for our community of interest. And we are going to be actually looking at specifically at one of these papers in the final bit of the lecture. But basically, homeopathy and the use of dynamized high dilution in agriculture fits perfectly on what we understand as a sustainable food production. Because the sustainable food production encompasses the economic sphere, the social sphere, and the environmental sphere. And homeopathy, being a complex system, therapeutic system, applies itself to all of it, and not only applies itself, it fits and amalgamates all these spheres into producing food with low residual impact, focused on natural biostimulation of the crops and the plants, and helping us to read the environment through an ecological and systemic look. So we dive now into this one of our recent publication. As I mentioned, this was published in the Biological Agriculture and Horticultural Journal, a high impact journal of the international sustainable farming community. And the title of this one was the use of mineral dynamized high dilutions for natural plant biostimulation, effects on plant growth, crop production, fruit quality, pest disease, and incidence in agroecological strawberry cultivation. This experiment was conducted in greenhouse trials. We have used for this experiment the remedies Kali carbonica, Silicia terra, Mercurium solubilis, natrum, phosphorus, calcária, and sulfur. These remedies were coded and produced in the Laboratory of Plant Health and Homeopathy from EPAGRI. And we selected this remedy based on previous literature that we find in other papers that had positive results with it. And the potency 12CH was also very commonly found in literature on experiments with plants as yielding positive results. Apart from that, we use as our logical that calcium, phosphorus, sulfur, silicon, potassium, sodium chlorate, and and mercurius are key elements for the plants to develop. So lacking any of these elements, the plant starts to have lots of morphophysiological disease, and that was kind of a parameter for us to understand and to try these remedies. This experiment was double-blinded, so they get coded by color and number, as you can see here in this picture. And we did a randomized block design with 9 blocks and 9 treatments, where we had 81 experimental units. Each of the experimental units consisted of a strawberry plant allocated into a 3.6 liter pot of organic compost. and the data and collection happened in 2019, and this experiment was repeated in 2021. We have done so many assessments. It was a very big experiment that was only possible due to the research team of the fruiticulture team from the University of Santa Catarina State in Brazil. And we were able to classify the fruits into fresh market fruit, which are fruits that have more than 12 grams, and processing fruits, which are fruits that have less than 12 grams that are used in the industry to make jams and other products. So we were able to categorize the fruit production on that. We also did measurements into the crown diameter. This is an agronomic picture that is widely known that the bigger it is, the more resistant the plant are to disease, the more vigorous the plants are, the biggest is the production. We have made assessments on the flower and leaf assessment, marking the weekly production of these plants and the number of flowers that became fruits or not. We were also doing measurements of chlorophyll content of the leaves, because the level of chlorophyll is a direct indicator of the photosynthesis activity, therefore how fast and strong a plant's metabolizing. And also, for example, the production of stolons, particularly very important for nurseries, this information. We also did a series of assessments related to the canopy and the root system development using digital scanner. You can see here we were able to measure all sorts of different features of the root system of the plants, and also the fruit characteristics, assessing the texture of the fruits, the color, and the pH and the acidity of these fruits. And finally, we did the phytosanitary assessments for the two main problems that the strawberry culture faces, which is the red mite, Tatacanus urtici, and the fungi disease, Mycosferella fragari, which is one of the main reasons that so much pesticides are applied to strawberry plants. I'm not going to stay too longer here so we can have more time to talk and for questions. This paper will be available for you, but what I can highlight here is that in both years, the preparation sulfur and phosphorus have yielded more productive plants. Those results were repeated in both years for both characteristics, having more fresh fruit market fruits and also industry fruits. We also had positive results. We're also possible to verify positive results regarding the plant growth. And again, sulfur and phosphorus, this time followed by silicia, yielding positive results regarding plant height, the fresh mass of this plant, the dry mass, the foliar area, the number of viable leaves produced, and having the least number of dead leaves. So very, very interesting results. Same thing for the number of production of stolons, higher concentration of spad units, which is the chlorophyll content, less number of dead flowers, and biggest crown diameters, which are incredible results. Sorry. And with regards of the architecture development, we were able to see that Calcarea has yielded plants that had a bigger volume of root system, that have an average of thicker root system, which is important for collating nutrients and water, and also a projected area, so exploring more the resources, excuse me, which are key features for plant resilience towards climate stressors. So a series of very important results, and very interesting also, plants treated with sulfur and silicon, or silica terra, apologies, were less affected by disease when compared to the controls. Overall, it's clear that homeopathy in society represents science, it represents care, a philosophy of care. It also represents a value worldview that helps us to understand and respect and achieve and look for sustainability. It also helps us to think about how responsible we are for the way that we farm and the way that we produce our food. It's crucial also to understand that there has to be a popular appropriation for the knowledge. If the population uses homeopathy, regardless what like skeptics or what a mainstream industry of the pharmacy or whoever it is says against the homeopathy, when there is a popular appropriation, specifically in the case of farmers, they are pragmatic. They use what it works. They're not concerned about, oh, maybe this, maybe that. No, farmers are pragmatic. If it works, they use it. If not, they don't use it. And homeopathy is one of these tools. They learn about it, they get trained about that, and they use that in their farm. So that popular appropriation helps the discipline to thrive. It's about building ways of knowing. It's about creating wisdom dialogues. It's about preserving therapies and knowledge systems that will help us to keep developing healthier ways to produce and to treat ourselves and our environment. It's clear that there is a need for more multidisciplinary research to understand the methodology and how else it can expand. There is a need for more opportunities in education, training, and services in homeopathy, and of course, to establish more networking across multi-sector, so partnerships like what we're doing here with the Canadian coalition, and all of you interested here are very important. And there is clearly a need, and there is this space that we should feel empowered to talk about homeopathy, regardless the environment that we are, because it is a reliable and it is a very good method to treat all living beings. No other Western systemic method does that. In the words of Professor Paulo Freire in his amazing book, Pedagogy of Hope, I see also that homeopathy creates the dialogue spaces that help broadening views and perceptions, improves communication between parts throughout meaningful interconnections held in a space of care, solidarity, and respect. Here are some references that I used to produce this seminar. These are academic publications. These are related to ecological theory and systemic thinking. And that's it for now. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Faedo, for this enlightening, very thoughtful and thorough presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure that everybody else who was there, you're seeing wonderful comments in the chat. I personally am curious about the use of the 12C. Does it mean that we have tested it against 6C and 9C, or we have tested it against 15C and 30C, for instance, and 12C works the best? And the question also is with our patients, in human beings, very often when a low potency stops acting, we use higher potencies. Has there been any research to see whether higher potencies have a different effect on plants?
Thanks for the question, Dr. Sharam. As I mentioned before, the selection of the 12CH you're asking for the specific study, yeah?
That's right. Or has it been experimented with different?
No, so there are a few studies with plants testing different potencies, and from the information that we have collated, there is a range of potency. I published that in my thesis as well. I could during my this is another paper that we're going to publish. It's already accepted for publication under final review now. That we were able to make a list of 70 remedies that were commonly used in agriculture, and they vary a lot in terms of the potencies. And but the 12 and the 30 CH are the most common by far. And specifically in some cases, it's related to what is being available in the pharmacies, because the remedy that are used for plants is the same for the humans. It's the same remedy. It's not like a remedy that's developed for plants. It's the same remedy. So it's also related to what kind of remedy you can get locally, or in some cases what you can get like online. So it's pretty much about that. And in the systematic review that we are doing now, we're going to present a cluster about these potencies, and it's clear that there is kind of a connection between like 12CH being used for more acute cases, like when it's like more related to some leaf disease or some presence of, something is more obvious. And then the 30CH much more like to the systemic thinking. That's at least what is the logic that is presented into the publications. But for our case specifically, was clearly selecting the remedies that we chose and the positive results that we were able to identify in published articles that were using also the 12CH. So it was just a direct correlation in previous success studies. That was the main key feature.
Thank you so much. Maybe I want to invite the audience. Anybody who has a question, please share your questions in the chat or in the question and answer session, and maybe Victor can help us go through those. Well, here is a question. What is the best way for Canadian farmers to learn more about using homeopathy on their farms? So if you were to educate farmers in Canada, if you were to educate farmers in Canada, what would be the best way for the Canadian farmers to learn more about using homeopathy on their farms?
Well, I can tell about our experience in Brazil, where we have these training courses, as I mentioned, where they go across the whole therapeutic system, starting from the basis, like homeopathic philosophy and practice. And so there is a need to go through the education of homeopathy itself. And then what the final bits of the course of the module is then applied to the ecosystem and these correlations that we just discussed, like application of ecological thought and systemic thinking. So there is the need for having this kind of initiatives, not just for farmers, but anyone that is interested in growing your own food, or you're a gardener, whatever you are. So there is this necessity of having some kind of course and training into the topics. I know that the European Commission for Homeopathy is preparing a course to be launched in September of this year for homeopathy in agriculture and the environment. So, and they're going to make that online. Apart from that, it's pretty much like local initiatives. So I don't know if you have anything like that, but I think that will be a good start for you guys to have offer a course for people interested in Canada, because that's the scenario of most of the farmers, the conventional farmers particularly, very pressured by the use of pesticides and chemicals, needing an alternative to help them to ease these problems. And that's the key entrance of homeopathy, because it's interesting to notice that even conventional farmers use homeopathy, not because they want an ecological view, but because they have positive results using that. So offering these as a method that will help them to build the resilience of their systems, regardless it is a key kind of interpoint. But a course, nevertheless, a course, because there is a need for education and the worldview of homeopathy and so on and so forth.
Thank you. There was a question about where to find these remedies for plants, but from what I heard from you, that the remedies for the plants are exactly the same as the remedies for humans.
Yeah, they are exactly. It's the same remedies. There are some companies that they produce remedies, like for example, in Germany they call it Pflanzentonic, so tonic for plants, and they mix something else with the homeopathic preparation, either a nutritional solution or something else. So they make kind of this combo, and the homeopathic remedy is inside of that. But that is a commercial, like there is a commercial initiatives. But for farmers in general, it's the same remedy. The remedy for humans, you get the same remedy, and then you use it. And then now there's lots of advances into how do you apply that, like how do you apply the remedy for a plant, and what is the volume that you use? Do you treat the whole field? Do you spray it? Do you irrigate it? So all these questions are coming more clear, and it's clear now that it depends on the culture, it depends on the phase that the culture is developing, and because there have been some interesting results showing, for example, that applying, for example, silicia in the flowering period of a crop can be a problematic. There is a reduction in the number of the viable flowers, so it's linking the agronomic with the therapeutic system, and these, because the field is so novel, this information are just now being clustered. And of course, what remedy? How do you select the remedy for a plant or for a pro? That's the kind of the big thing that is coming also in the radar. And it's clear that at least from the perspective that we have built so far, that that concept that I presented to you as the farming organism, including the human. It's really funny to see we have this experience in the Netherlands that we're doing now, and that we are putting medical homeopaths with a small group of people that have training in homeopathy and agriculture, and we are doing individual anamnesis, okay? And when we come together, we see that the remedy that they want to treat the farmer is usually the same one that they use to treat the land. It's very interesting to see that correlation, about like you treat the human, and it's very likely to be the same remedy you're going to treat the land. So it is a new a novel approach. Because I am an agronomist, I tend to look towards more morphophysiological components, and so, for example, what are the kind of deficiency that a plant have if there is a lack of phosphorus? There's a shrinking, there's some kind of feeling, especially you can read like there's problem into the assimilation of nutrients, and so you start to make this correlation. And then if you run an anamnesis, for example, use any software, you can get some key inferences, and then it helps you to select a remedy. But this is for sure the biggest challenge. How do you select these remedies?
Good, thank you. Are you aware of any online courses present for farmers to teach them how to use agrohomeopathy?
So that's what I was mentioning. Last year, for the first time, the European Commission of Homeopathy and ABAMA, which is the Brazilian Association of Homeopathy, they launched an online course. It was the first time that I heard of something like that. And as I mentioned, this September, the European Commission is going to launch an online course on homeopathy in agriculture and the environment. So they probably will be circulating this. The information about this course very soon. So we will be in contact with you as well to spread this information with you guys.
It would be so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other questions from the audience?
There was one question regarding the health of the soil, specifically the use of multiple chemicals over decades. And I believe the question is how to address that. A comparison is made to people who have taken many allopathic medicines. And the second part of that question was regarding the use of Q potencies.
The use of what?
Q potencies or LM potencies.
Yeah. So the question about the soil intoxication it's very very interesting and very good. I have a colleague that always starts any process that she's an advisor in Switzerland, and she always starts by the what she calls detoxification, starting using remedies, for example, nux vomica, which is like used also in the human therapy for this kind of detoxification and things like that. But as I mentioned before, homeopathy on itself should be used with other methods. And in the case of like detoxifying soil, it has to be accompanied by the use of biological products. It has to be used, of course, including microorganisms that have that role in the soil. The microorganisms in nature have that role. And then when you apply that certain remedy to the soil, you help this community of fungi and bacteria to perform that work. Because that's what makes the soil alive. It's the microbiology that is there. So there has to be this combo, a homeopathic preparation in our understanding the research. It's a signly pattern towards an organization status. So for that information to be received, it has to be received by somebody, and that somebody is the microbiology. So for you to start to detoxify a soil, you have to enrich that life with microbiology, and then start to apply the remedies with that, so you help that life in the soil to do the work. It's not going to be the remedy itself doing anything. You have to support the life present in that soil. I see some questions here. Sorry, I just opened it. Anna, would you like to open your question and make to open a camera and put the question, or are you happy for me to read it here? I don't know. It's just nice to see people's face. I'm sorry, I don't want to put you in the spotlight, but I think your question is very nice.
Yeah, I think unfortunately because of the format, we can't have the guests
Okay.
join.
I'm sorry. So Anna here asked, how did we actually treat the plants, or how did you reach to you? So we applied that, putting 1 ml of the liquid remedy, so not the globuli. I know that some parts of the world you have just the globuli, but in South America, it's super common to have the liquid version of the remedy. And in that case, for this experiment, we added 1 ml of the remedy into 50 ml of distilled water, and that was individually irrigated to the plants. There are different approaches. Some people use that in spraying, depends on the area that you have, and of course the equipment that you have. So that will vary a little bit. But for the specific case of our experiment, that was applied via irrigation system. I will just put some let me put this thing here in the chat. I'm just okay. You might have. Did you see something in the chat now? This is the paper, the publication of the paper.
Yes,
and where is it? I just want to put the here it is, the book chapter as well. You can find it also. You can find this if you just go into the Google Scholar and you type for homeopathy in agriculture with my surname. It will appear for you as well as open access, the whole book and the whole chapter. But I have placed it here in the chat. You should be able to see it now. The two, both the academic paper and the book chapter. Is there any other questions? I can't see it now. Not visible to everyone. Host and panelists. Oh, yeah. Let me see now. Thank you, Liz. I will do it again. There you go. Yeah, you're right, Liz. And it should be coming to you now.
I could ask a question, could be a suggestions as well. In human beings, we often use a homeopathic remedy made from a drug, or sometimes even a poison that the person has been affected with. So what I mean by that, as you know, somebody may have been using a drug for a year or two, and the homeopaths make a homeopathic remedy from that drug to give to their patients to somehow detoxify the system. Has there been any research or thought about using homeopathic dynamized form of the pesticides that have affected the soil to use on those soils?
There are a few studies, not many, but there are, particularly looking into, I don't know if you are aware about this product called glyphosate. It's a very common herbicide used in agriculture, and there are a few studies from Germany and from India where they have been used dynamized dilutions of glyphosate to assess the impact on development of plants. And in some cases, they got, what can we call it, positive? They got like responses that the plants were not like developing well. Yeah. But the thing is, I think because one of the explanations for that is, you see, the word pesticide with the ending side means to kill. That's the acronym. So homeopathic preparation usually enhances a natural process, either towards the health or to not establish to exoneration process. So I'm not so sure and how how positive the results within the case of in this case of the pesticides would do. What we know on the other hand, that positive results, for example, when intoxication with aluminum or heavy metals, these have been producing positive results. So plants have been, for example, wheat plants being intoxicated with aluminum, then being treated with aluminum, have produced plants that were able to thrive and to develop more, even though they were intoxicated. So there are some research on that as well. So it is possible. It is something to look at for sure.
Oh, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
I think Elise has asked, what is the best way for Canadian farmers to learn more about using homeopathy? As I mentioned, Lise, I just put now these two books as an introductory reading, and also make sure to find this place here called, I will put here in the chat, called Health Culture. This is a UK-based initiative that frequently offer courses and lectures on the topic. And also, as I mentioned, keep an eye, please, to ECH, the European Community for Homeopathy. They're going to be launching a course on homeopathy in agriculture and the environment. And of course, why not we organize a small course for gardeners and small interested people in Canada? That would be great. We could maybe see if there is a group of people interested, not just for farmers, but like people like ourselves that are interested to know how to, because remember, it's not just for agriculture, it's about for the environment. How can we do that? Maybe the Canadian Coalition for Homeopathy could organize a small course, a small module, something that it would be possible to happen. And that's just one idea, yeah?
Yeah, that would be wonderful. We'll definitely bring it to the coalitions, and we'll be in touch with you to see whether we can develop such a course together.
Absolutely. I will put here I'll put here in the chat just for anybody that wants to get in touch. This is my email, but you can find my contact also into Coventry University profile, ResearchGate, or LinkedIn. I'm also present there. That's the only social media that I'm present at the moment. We can get in touch via LinkedIn, ResearchGate, and for the ones of you that work with research, we can get in touch via or SEED, which is the International Network of Researchers. So please get in touch there. But if you type my name, Leonardo Faedo, probably you find a link for any of the projects or the institutions that I'm working. So should be easy to get in touch.
Thank you so much.
and I made this presentation available for Dr. Sharam and Victor and the Canadian Coalition for Homeopathy. So probably you can have access to this presentation afterwards. So feel free to study that material.
Thank you so much. There's one more question about the use of arsenic amalgam in agriculture. Do you have any experience or knowledge of?
As I mentioned, there's a few studies with the intoxication of arsenic, particularly into wheat plants as a plant model. Most of these studies from Switzerland, and they have yielded positive results. It's just escaping me like what were the potency that they used, but what I know for sure is that they treated the seeds, was not the plant. So they started treating the seeds. They soaked the seeds into the solution that has a homeopathic preparation, and that's actually something really cool that I have been noticing in lots of studies. The act of like treating your seeds into the remedy, soaking them, and then planting them has yielded positive results. There are like at least a dozen studies from Germany and Brazil, and there was one very cool from South Africa, from Pretoria, and there is one study from Austria also looking into treating seeds with homeopathic preparation. And actually, this is something that I want to look more in future projects. It's always a challenge to find funding to research homeopathy in agriculture. We have to use, for example, the term dynamized high dilutions, which is more accepted for some reason, because it's a term that you use across like physics, biology, and agronomic studies. So I think that's one of the reasons. But the term of homeopathy itself, it has a space and has value, but there is always a little bit more difficulty to find funding to develop this kind of studies. But because it has yielded really good results, and I mentioned before, farmers are pragmatic. They use what it works, and they are using homeopathy for one clear reason: it works. It works. They get trained, they have positive results, and that's how things progress.
Yes, so true. Thank you so much.
It's okay. Thank you. My pleasure. I think there's just a final question here in the is there any value working cycles moon homeopathy as well? Lovely question, Lee Ann. And might I recommend you to have a look a bit more into biodynamic farming. Biodynamic farming. Because biodynamic farming really recuperate this kind of knowledge, and they have a clear interest in calendar that they recommend when it's time for us to apply, for example, preparations for the leaves or for the roots or for the fruit. So that could be a good guidance for you to have a kind of insight on when to apply. So please have a look on that.
Well, thank you, Dr. Faedo. I really, really appreciate the time, the energy, the enthusiasm that's you had today for doing this presentation. I want to encourage everyone who has been here to share a copy of this recording with their friends, their patients, their colleagues, their family, and so on. We need to spread homeopathy and the principle of homeopathy as far as possible. We need to prove over and over and over that homeopathy is not just a placebo anymore. Anybody who believes homeopathy is placebo is because they're not really doing their due diligence, so doing their research. So thank you so much for being here. And Victor, I'll pass the floor to you for the final remarks.
Great. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Dr. Faedo, for this very interesting presentation. I think it will leave a lot of people even more curious than they were before they came in to explore agrohomeopathy and the use of homeopathy for their own gardens, but then for broader agricultural purposes. So it's very exciting, and It will be great to see how this area develops because there's so much to discover. Um, as we noted at the beginning, we have a very exciting schedule for future webinars for this year. I won't go through them all again, but the information is here, and all the information is also available on the website, homeopathycoalition.ca. So you can go on there and check on a regular basis, or you can subscribe to our newsletter where you will get updates about when various webinars are open for registration. So please do sign up for these webinars, and please do share the word widely amongst your friends, colleagues, anyone who you think is interested. As well, the recordings of all of these webinars are free and will be available on our YouTube page. That link is on the website, but you can also just type in Homeopathy Coalition YouTube, and the videos should all be available that way as well. So thank you very much for attending today's webinar. And I also wanted to say special thanks for Canadians for Homeopathy. And you can check out them. They're a sister organization of the Homeopathy Coalition, and they have kindly allowed us to use their Zoom platform. So please do support Canadians for Homeopathy in their mission as well. They are a consumer organization and do a number of very exciting and important webinars. So thanks to everyone who made this webinar possible, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, everybody, for your presence. Very inspiring questions, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you all and for collaborating in future opportunities. Be all well.
Thank you, Dr. Faedo. Thank you, Victor. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.